Welcome to this week's episode of the Recruitment Version. This week I'm joined again by Hannah, and we will be discussing why, as a school leaver, you should consider recruitment. So, just to get into it, another recap on myself. I joined Sterling Warrington last year on their graduate scheme just after I finished university, and I've loved it. I've loved every single moment of it. So I suppose this episode is going to be a bit of an interesting discussion into recruitment as a career on the whole, why it's a good career choice for people, even those who may not have initially considered it, and what you should be looking for in recruitment graduate schemes and things like that to make it worth your while. So, Hannah, any sort of opening thoughts?
Interesting one. I remember getting into sort of recruitment and not actually realising what recruitment was. I think that's the biggest thing. Like whenever you go and you're like, what do? You work in the recruitment industry, and everyone sort of gives you that sort of like puzzled look of recruitment. It's like, don't people do that themselves? And you're like, yeah, we help them. And they sort of go like, okay, right, awesome. So I remember sort of like applying, originally trying to like tell people what I did, and they were there like, recruitment, really? You? And you're there like, yeah, I don't do the recruitment bit, but like, yeah, I'm in the industry. And I remember like almost trying to learn about like what recruitment was and just how vast it is. Yeah. I think when you start to learn is that you hire people. Okay, right. That is such a brief under explanation of anything ever. Like you hire people. It's like you don't just hire people, you do so much. And I think recruitment was quite an interesting one because there's so much you can do in recruitment. Like a lot of people just go, yeah, it's hard sales role, like bish bash bosh. And they're like, okay, actually when you start to learn about it and all the different routes and everything into the industry, there is so much to it.
There's so much to it.
So much to it. I think you maybe were in like quite an interesting, not an interesting position, but you kind of came in and you were coming into like a cold desk.
Yeah.
Which was quite interesting.
Yeah, it was difficult, but I'm so glad that that's what happened. So Sterling Warrington, obviously their main sort of bag is engineering recruitment. They also have sort of a commercial desk, but in the sort of building product sector and things like that. So I came in as the first one to sort of on the main commercial side of things, so doing marketing recruitment. So obviously joining the company, they didn't have any active clients for marketing roles, things like that. So I was brought in and I had to build my own desk from scratch. And I think to some people that could seem like, whoa, that's too much for someone new to the industry. But I think it worked really well for me because it meant that every single thing that could have gone wrong, or every single skill set that I needed to do, and every single aspect that I will ever have to do in the job, I had to do within my first few months because I was building something from nothing. So when I came in, Adam, our MD, he trained me on everything I needed to know in terms of skill set and just sort of general transferable skills in recruitment and general processes. And then from that point, I had to start obviously going out and building that desk. And the biggest thing that sticks in my mind about that period of time was he said to me over and over again, just make a mess. Don't be scared to make a mess because I'll then help you clean up. And I think that absolutely changed the game for me because, you know, we all make mistakes. If you're a graduate or you're an apprentice and you're coming into something, your biggest fear is, I'm going to make a mistake and I'm going to be fired or I'm going to be in trouble.
Something bad's going to happen. And that's because that's a lot of time from schools. Like if you make a mistake, you made a spare mistake, therefore you got 1 mark deducted.
Yeah.
And they're like,
and you're used to being punished for mistakes. But it was almost like mistakes were celebrated when I came in. They were like, you will learn from your mistakes, make those mistakes, and you're not on your own because you'll make them and then we can hold your hand and clean them up, and that is how you'll learn. So for me, as soon as he said that, my mind opened up and I thought, do you know what, let me pick up the phone and see what happens. I think if he hadn't said that, I'd be like, right, I'm scared to pick up the phone. What's going to happen? You know, am I going to make a mistake? Am I going to sort of ruin Sterling Warrington's reputation? You know, what's going to happen? But he said that. And, you know, I did make a few mistakes here and there, but, you know, none of them were as disastrous as I sort of initially worried that they would be. And I did have his help with cleaning up anything on, you know, he can say, oh, no, it doesn't matter. It's not the end of the world. It happens to all of us. Why don't you try this? And I think that is so important, and I would urge anyone who's considering a career recruitment during an interview process to ask, how do you manage mistakes in the company? How do you support newbies who make mistakes? Because that the way that, you know, it's approached here is just amazing, and it really helped me sort of get to where I am today. So that's a huge thing, and it's interesting how I even sort of landed in recruitment, because I think if you look at my background and even sort of my personality as well, I'm probably very different to your sort of average recruiter in the industry. I'm not that sort of typical salesperson or anything like that. But, you know, Sterling Warrington gave me a chance, and I think a lot of it was because of transferable skills and things I'd done. So, I mean, I did a degree in creative writing, and I think they identified that during the sort of interview process to be a transferable skill for job writing. As I mentioned in a previous episode, I started a magazine, and for that I recruited a team of 7 to 8 volunteers, and I had to interview them and go through that process. So again, transferable skill there. So I think if you've got transferable skills and you enjoy talking to people, then it could work for you. And I think a lot of people probably don't consider recruitment because they probably think, oh, that's a sales job. But it's way more than that. There's a lot of admin. There's a lot of, you know, creative writing of your job adverts. There's a lot of
marketing,
loads of marketing now. There's a lot of going out and meeting clients and chatting to people and building relationships. And there's just so much more to it. And, you know, for so many people, it might not be an obvious choice, but it could actually be the right choice. And that's what I found, really.
I think you made a really good point there in terms of it's not the obvious choice. Like so many recruiters, like if you ever get into the industry, if you ever speak to people in industry, it's always, I fell into recruitment. Always. I fell into recruitment. And it's just one of those. It's because one, I don't think a lot of people know what recruitment is, and two, it's never something that you consider. And I think a big part of that is because it is perceived to be a sales job. Don't get me wrong, there are sales aspects. Even I've jumped on the phone and I've sold and I've tried to get business on, and that's even as a marketer. So I came in to the recruitment industry via a marketing apprenticeship. As a result of that, I ended up being exposed to so many different business areas. I think I've done every job that you can do in a recruitment agency in some way, shape or form at some point. But I think that I completely forgot where I was going with that point then. That's just gone. I just went, nope, okay, that's fine.
That's okay. But no, I mean, your point about people falling into recruitment, it's such a good point. I see LinkedIn posts all the time, and it, you know, probably maybe 1% of people say, you know, I set out to get a job in recruitment. Most people set out for a different job and just sort of stumbled into it and found that they loved it. And I think it's probably just one of those jobs that's never talked about in careers fairs and things. I mean, at uni, it was never even presented to us as an option. You know, they said, if you don't decide to get a job related to a degree, here are some options. And they said, you know, admin assistant and things like that, and like normal sales jobs. There was nothing about recruitment there at all. It was something I stumbled upon myself on the job boards, did a bit of research, and I was like, that sounds all right. It sounds interesting. I'll definitely start a conversation. But yeah, no, it's definitely something that is just you stumble into, but then it ends up being, you know, people's lifelong career paths, and it's such a fruitful industry to get into, and there's so much to get involved with. Every day is different. I think for me, that's what works for me with recruitment. You know, I think a lot of people expected me to go into like journalism and things like that, but all I'd be doing day in, day out is the same thing. I'd just be writing all day, every day. And I wouldn't be able to do that. I need variety. I like to come in each day and be like, right, what do I want to do today? Okay, today I'm going to do business development, or today I'm going to build relationships with my clients. Today I'm going to get on the phone to candidates, and I've got the choice and I get to do different things.
And it's encouraged a lot of the time. I think recruitment, you mentioned a lot about like making mistakes, and I think recruitment is brilliant because one, a lot of the time you're thrown at the deep end anyway. Even if you aren't given, like say if you are given accounts to manage to begin with, you still have to go and find, source, select and find those humans. You will inevitably be thrown in at the deep end because that's the sort of nature of the industry. As long as you've got some level of hand holding, that's fine. But recruitment is brilliant because there are so many things to go wrong that you are going to learn. And there's so many things to go wrong. It is endless in the respect that, you know, you've got candidates that can mess up, you've got clients that can mess up, you've got yourself that can mess up, you've even got your colleagues that can mess up. And you just sort of end up being in a massive web of just, okay, there's a bunch of mistakes, let's learn from those. But I think another thing that is really weird, considering how unspoken about recruitment is a career. There are so many routes into industry. I know that you kind of went down the graduate scheme, so that would put you in at like a trainee level. So that typically, I think it was a 360 role that you came into as well. So you would be doing business development and the account management side of it as well. In terms of the actual like routes into industry that you can have, apprenticeship is another good way into it. A lot of people that I know have got in through apprenticeships, but it's like, well, what do you do as an apprentice or as an apprenticeship in recruitment? A lot of the time you could do like customer service apprenticeships that will take you in at like, you know, the account management level. So that'll be where you'll be doing, you know, a lot more resourcing. So that's speaking to the candidates, and that's trying to make sure that you're finding and building candidate pools. You don't really have much to deal with the client side of things. You will just be you're just being a face for candidates. There's a lot of sales based apprenticeships that you can go down. That typically will take you down the business development side of it, or it's another route into sort of like your 360 side of it. I think out of those that I've spoken to, I think going into a sales apprenticeship and then going into 360 is easier, because it forces you to do sales sooner. And I remember when I first joined as a wee scared 18-year-old, I didn't want to go anywhere near that phone. So getting into a sort of like job like that, if you know that, okay, well, recruitment sounds really, really interesting, what is the option? If you've got the option to do an apprenticeship, maybe consider doing something like a sales-based apprenticeship. You've also now actually got recruitment-specific, like recruitment consultant apprenticeships that kind of bundle everything together. A lot of these are like level 3, or like where you start at like level 2. So like level 2 is like, what's that, like GCSE?
I think so. Yeah,
so it's like level 2, level 3. But then the routes after there are insane. Like once you're into the industry, like us, for example, like one of our colleagues, he's gone and done like a management course off the back of getting into the industry. And it's it's not just sales, you're shoehorned into sales. There's so many routes that you can go down, and like it's just the opportunities are endless, but it's very tailored to what you want to do, providing that you've got an employer that will support you in the way that you need to be supported.
Absolutely. And I think even for people who are put off by the sales aspect of it, I mean, my sales approach is very different, and my manager tells me that all the time, but they let me do it because it's working for me. So I'm not that I won't pick up the phone and sort of do a sales pitch, I will, but that's normally actually my last resort. Most of my business comes on through sort of cold emails really, rather than cold calls, and that works for me. And I think it could work for a lot of people who are scared of the sort of sales pitch down the phone traditional approach. So if you've got a company who are happy to sort of let you try your methods and see what happens, I think that could be really good. And you know, even people who don't really like doing it but happy to do it for a bit, eventually you get to the point where you've built up a desk, you've built up all your connections, and it's all inbound. We've got quite a few consultants in our company. They don't have to do any business development, any sales, because it is all inbound, and their clients know them, trust them, and as soon as they've got a vacancy they come to them. So it is something that if you play the long game, there's a lot in it for you, even progression as well. There's loads of I know our company has sort of like a clear progression scheme of what that could look like. We've had someone who was a consultant for only a year and they were already promoted to senior consultant. So there's lots going on within the world of recruitment. There are so many different types of roles that you can get into, so many sort of progression paths and levels as well.
And I think because it's so fast paced, everyone talks about how fast paced recruitment is, but really it is a catapult for your career in a lot of instances. Like,
absolutely,
because you're thrown at the deep end, because of how quick it is, because it is very much like sink or swim with a floaty. It is very much like, okay, I can go places quick if that's where you want to go. If your goal is to make money, you can make money in recruitment if you put the work in. Absolutely. If your goal is to have a varied career where every single day is different, even like for me in marketing, like I don't think I've had the same day twice and I've been here a year. And it's insane, and I love it, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And I think now being in recruitment, I think if I was to try and, not that I ever would, if I was pointing that out, I don't think I could consider a non-recruitment career, because everything would just be boring. Like imagine coming into work and just being it. Like, there's nothing that can go wrong. And you're there like, okay, that's interesting.
We never know what we're going to walk into, but I think that's what keeps it so refreshing. And I think it's one of those reasons that you don't really dread coming into work, because what can you dread? You don't know what you're walking into. You might walk into the best day ever or the worst day ever, but you don't know at that point. So it is all, you know, completely different on a day-to-day basis. And I think in terms of the skill sets, and I feel like it's developed me as a person, because
100%.
It wasn't that I wasn't confident before, but now that I'm in recruitment, I'm so confident, and it sort of trickles into my home life as well. You know, I'll be out and about in the streets and I could talk to random strangers, or I could be in a shop and I'll make extra conversation with the salesperson or things like that. I think it's nice. It's developed so many of my skill sets. It's helped with my, I think, organization skills as well, because you have to be so organized, and I'm quite an erratic person. I always have so many thoughts.
Really?
Yeah, you wouldn't
never have guessed that.
You wouldn't. You absolutely wouldn't. But I have so many thoughts constantly running around my head. I will start one thing and then start doing another thing, and like I'm all over the place. But coming into recruitment, I was like, I need an organization scheme that works for me. So I've tried so many different things, and I've got to the point where the organization system I use and the planner I use at work, I use in my home life as well, for like errands and other bits and bobs I need to do. So like it's helped develop my skill sets and even my personality as well. And I probably wouldn't be the person I am today if it wasn't for recruitment.
I agree with you. Yeah, I remember doing recruitment, a wee scared little girl that couldn't even eat lunch in front of people. So sad.
And now look at you.
And now look at you. I can at least eat a piece of toast in front of people. But no, recruitment. Yeah, is it for school leavers? Like, I think so.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think providing that you've got the right mindset, and you know, in that recruitment, it is an amazing game to get into, but it is tough, and you need to approach it so that it is, each day is different. I'm here to learn. No day is ever going to be the same.
Yeah. And find a company as well that are happy to support you, let you have the space to make mistakes, and really progress you as well, and are happy to invest in you and grow with you while you grow with the company.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Recruitment Aversion. Next week, we will be doing an employer-focused episode where we will be discussing the ways in which you can support graduates and apprentices.